Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Marriage Radio, alongside my wife, Pam. Good to see you again since last week.
Nice to be here.
I flew solo, and
Yeah.
there was some fun conversations happened on the platform from last week's episode on the idea of solo sex.
I thought you were going to say fun conversations on the show with you talking by yourself.
Well, I mean, sometimes solo is fun. Let's just put it out there. Well, this is Sexy Marriage Radio, where we want to have honest, straightforward conversations. That's where we're going to go today, from a voicemail that's come in on how do we talk about this in age appropriate ways with our kids, and what is that conversation? What are some of the tips, suggestions? How do we do this is kind of the idea behind what we're doing today. But I want to do a quick little housekeeping conversation with you in regards to the Sexy Marriage Radio getaway.
Okay.
Because typically every single summer we have a getaway, and this summer we're not. And so we want to get ahead of this.
This summer being 2026.
This summer 2026, we're not hosting a getaway. And so we want people that are some of the regulars that will come join us to have an opportunity. Because I know several couples that we talk to that are at the getaways, they have an intentional once a year, we're going to go do something for our marriage. And so we want to put it out there so those that are making plans that have other options too, because there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah.
You get an opportunity to, hey, see what else is there that would really want to fit, because we're taking the summer off in 2026 as far as the getaway is concerned. And so I just want to make sure everybody's informed and it's upfront about that.
All right. So, well, PSA right there.
Well, today's episode, like I alluded to, we have a voicemail that's come in from a woman that has listened in the past, and she's come back. She's got 2 kids. And she wants to know, how do I talk about this with my kids? And so in the regular version, we're going to go through some principles that you can use. And then in the extended content, which is deeper, longer, and there's no ads, you can subscribe at smr.fm/academy. We're going to break it down into segments by age. There's a couple of, like, we'll break them into 3 basic age groups and get a little more deeper into where do you go with each of these segments.
Perfect.
So all that's coming up right after this.
Hey, Corey and Pam. This is Cassie from Colorado, and I have been listening to you guys for about a year now. Love your show. And I grew up without having any sort of sex talk with my parents, and basically learned it all as I went. And I'm now thankfully in a happy marriage and with 2 young boys that are 7 and 9. And I don't want them to go through the same thing that I did. And I want to provide them with a healthy sex education that is age appropriate. And I'm wondering what kind of guidance that you might have on that. Thanks for all you guys do. Really appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, I love when we get listeners that come back, because I think if you think of the life of Sexy Marriage Radio and how long we've been around, it's kind of fun to think people found us, other things happen, and then they come back and find us again. Well, welcome back to the nation. This is a great way to start.
Yeah. Well, you find a resource that helps you at one point in your life, and it's applicable to other things.
Absolutely. And so this is, I guess what we'll talk about is just how do we teach kids healthy sex and sexuality is kind of the way to frame this conversation. To start, this is something we've said in the past, and anytime we get a chance to speak on this subject, we'll for sure to try to drill this home as well. But this is not just one big talk.
Right. And I think that's a lot of what, well, talk to your father about that. And
or it's
people just discuss that there's one discussion about the birds and the bees.
Right.
And
we'll sit you down and we'll have the one big conversation. And I've heard a range of when this happens, even being all the way up to like the night before the wedding. A parent, you know what? We need to have a conversation.
Well, and your sex and sexuality is so much more than just the act, right? And so the kids need to understand.
Right. And in today's society where we are inundated with things via internet, via TV, via all kinds of sources, and granted, it can appear and feel like that the society is way over sexualized, but I'm going to go ahead and say, and it's always been way over sexualized. It's just a lot more prominent and prevalent and easily accessible than it ever has been. But the foundation is still there, that there's constantly been this feel in the world. And so one of the questions I would ask to kind of start is, if your kids came across something on the web, on the TV, they're watching something and an ad throws in, or something shows up on their YouTube feed and an ad throws in. And it truly is in the sexualized nature, the pornography nature, even kind of dabbling into that. Would they bring it to you? Is there an openness between you and your children that they would actually, hey, mom, or hey, dad, I got a question about something? Or would they go dark and keep it hidden and then wrestle all alone? That's just kind of an idea, because that's the way I want to frame this conversation, is how are we positioning ourselves as ones that are real good sources of information and openness about the struggle and the wrestle with some of these topics, because they're not easy to talk about sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that starts at a young age.
Yeah, because
So
they're already learning.
Ideally, you're starting early, and that's simple things like just using appropriate words for what body parts are,
Totally.
not being embarrassed or shocked by it. Because if the kids see you being embarrassed or shocked just by using the appropriate words, penis, vulva, vagina, breasts, if that embarrasses you to say those things, the kids pick up on that.
Absolutely, they do.
And that's a clue to not talk to mom and dad.
Yeah. Or I can't talk to mom about that because she gets uncomfortable talking about boy things. Or I can't talk to dad about that because he's uncomfortable talking about girl things. And that's where we get this stereotypical, well, go talk to your father about that, or go talk to your mother about that, depending on what gender it is. And I'm going to say we need to be comfortable talking about both. And then we also need to honor the gender. Like I've had opportunities early on with Sydney, our daughter, when she was real young, and she had some womanly things. There were early on with some rashes. You weren't home, and she was like, Dad, I've got this issue. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm happy to help. I'm happy to walk along, whatever. Or would you be more comfortable if it's mom? So it's just kind of honoring, at least talk about, hey, what do we need to do? But also, I don't want to force something that adds more shame, struggle, uncertainty, discomfort. That's unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's, again, how we started. And this is just some principles that we want to talk about, because we want to try to make ourselves the trusted sources, or at least among the trusted sources.
Yes.
Because we like to view this as our kids' brains are sponges. And I want them so full with information that's good and quality that there's harder times. It's harder for the other things to get in and stick.
Yeah. When their friends start talking about it, most of that, I want that to just overflow and kind of roll off, because the friends typically aren't going to know as much as we do.
That is the hope.
As far
we want
as
to be a standard that's got some better information at our fingertips than the friends and the world.
Yeah, depending on age, right?
And so principle number 1, we've already alluded to, and that's the idea of it's many small talks.
Okay.
You start now, you keep it short and regular. You also state it like, this is just part of our family conversation. We are open about things like this. And then we get a chance to interject the values we have surrounding it, that our bodies are beautiful. Our bodies are wonderful, that you are designed a certain way. There's a power and a sacredness and a blessedness because of how you're created and how your body functions. It's a marvel. It's that kind of thing, rather than we can have this air of shame associated with it, because either we don't talk about it or our talk about it is always negative.
Yeah.
Okay. And then 2 is we have opportunities to teach about intimacy, not just mechanics, because there's 2 different things in this.
Yeah. Okay. So that's, I guess maybe in the extended version, you're going to talk about age appropriate.
Yes.
But in broad scheme, what is it about intimacy that you're going to be talking about with
this is about the idea, our sexuality. How do we link it to care, honesty, responsibility, closeness, that it's not just a bodily function. Sexuality is a lot more. And so I start to have a chance to interweave the idea of, how do I get comfortable with uncomfortable feelings? How do I get comfortable with openness and sharing and talk about intimate, uncertain, problematic struggle, curiosity, naivete things? Because that's all intimate moments. And so a kid that's normally quiet comes and shares something to you, even if it's nothing sexually, but they're like, I'm really struggling with this. You honor that, you welcome that, you invite that, not applaud it, but you're like, I appreciate the courage it took to actually talk about this, honey. That's a big deal. That's kind of showing and modeling there's more to this than just how our body mechanically functions and what our body is. And then number 3 is that what you talked about is the age appropriate. You use regular biological terms, accurate body parts terms. And this is one of the things, just to put this as an interjection. We are big advocates of a book by Dr. Peter Maylay. Where Did I Come From is the first book that you start from birth to puberty, pretty much. And it walks you through. And the way we did this, and this isn't necessarily a prescription, this is just a description of what we've done, because I got this book from a colleague when I was in grad school when we were pregnant with our first. And she said, here's Sydney's first sex ed book. And that's exactly what it was. And so we started it with just looking through pictures and talking.
And the pictures are all cartoons.
They're all cartoons, but they're anatomically correct.
Yeah.
And the way they're drawn between male, female, and there's no sensationalization of things.
No,
it's just straightforward.
Yeah. It guides you through how a baby is made, and then the baby growing in the mother's womb. And it shows, here's the 9 months of how the baby grows in the mother's womb. And our kids never had the thought of, well, a baby just pops out of their belly. Right. They understood from the beginning.
Right. And so it's that element of seeing and having a conversation. And this, you can use resources that are available that are age appropriate. And so you can kind of stage it with, we're talking about pictures. We're kind of walking through this. And then as they get a little bit older, you're reading some of the text with them too, because it's really, really straightforward in that particular book.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of building it up, and you're just using opportunities to have the conversations that you want to keep them plain, straightforward. Don't use the scare tactics. Don't add in. And if you ever go do, it's just hey, here's the world. Here's you. Here's us. And then I can also implement values in this as I need to, of here's what we believe about this, and try to avoid it as a don't do this. And instead of here's what we really believe. Here's what we're striving towards. That changes the feel surrounding it. And so you want to keep it also just a real warm, as calm a tone as you can, which that's where you talked about. We've got to be comfortable talking about this. Mm-hmm. And to her email or her voicemail that came in, and she talked about, I was raised in a family that did not ever talk about this. And so there's some uncomfortable feelings that come with this.
Yeah, there's no example for her of how to do it.
So in that moment, in my mind, it's this whole, if I've got a kid that comes to me and I've had this experience, if I could be better at, you know what, buddy, this is uncomfortable for me to talk about, but let's do it. We got to figure this out together on walking through this, on what I've learned and what my experience is, and just kind of be honest, just own the fact of this isn't something I'm versed at and totally at ease either. So that's okay. This is a good thing. And you kind of just bring it out in the open, because they're going to read it anyway on you. So the more you can kind of be present and open yourself, man, you change the feel surrounding you. And then number 4 is, I think you have to start talking about some of the dynamics that are setting the stage for future as adult life. And that's the concepts of, even in the world we live in, of consent, which is boundaries as a child, but then on up.
Yeah.
Right. Of what are boundaries? How do you handle this with other people in the world we live in? What's appropriate and what's not?
Yeah. We went as far with our kids as to discuss some here. If anyone ever touches you in these areas, and it, tell us, and so we brought those things up, that you should not have to go. I don't even remember how we did it, but we had those discussions about other people.
Yeah. And that's just the concept of,
but that was as they're young, right? And so we're not even getting to the point where, when they're 13, 14, well, when can I start dating? And you're having those conversations as well. And what is that?
Then you're talking about frameworks and strategies, and it's still the same This
Yep.
is all ongoing dialogues that you're just adjusting and shifting because it's an ongoing conversation. And so then you can talk about, because I think you also need to have an element of how do you frame sexuality as it's a mutual thing when it's in a marriage, when you're interacting with a spouse. It's a mutual thing that's for both of you. You start interjecting some of the messages that we need to unravel from prior, where it was more male centric or it was more just for this, and how do you have conversations that show the power for both of you in the relationship? And that's not just, again, the mechanics of sex. That's also the whole vibrancy of our spirit when we're in relationship with people and what it does for us, that it's not just, so it's, again, we got all kinds of opportunities. Think about with little kids and friendships, where if your kid feels like they're constantly being left out of things, it's an opportunity to talk about a dynamic within that. Well, what are you really looking for here? How do you feel when these kinds of interactions happen? Because that's a model of, here's what relationships when you get a little bit older are going to be like.
It's that. Well, and it's the thing, scenarios like that always came up. I thought this is an opportunity for my kids to learn how they want to be treated and how they're treating other people.
Mm-hmm.
And if this person is treating you the XYZ way and you don't like it,
Right.
keep that in mind when
Right.
you're with other people too.
Every relationship is a learning field.
Yeah.
Totally good. So other principle we've already kind of alluded to is talk to boys directly, talk to girls directly. Because I think sometimes we split the genders on how, well, I should do it this way with the girls, and well, I need to do it with the uniqueness of of each particular child.
Yeah.
But as far as gender goes, have just straightforward conversations with both.
Yeah, there's no difference there.
And you can adjust it to their personality and their developmental level, if you will. But we do need to have conversations where we're talking to boys about girls and talking to girls about boys, not just themselves.
I got you.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of bringing it all into play because it sometimes seems easier to, well, it's easy to talk about this with this child, but not this one. But I need to do it with both.
Yeah, for us, those books made it. So you talked about where did I come from, but the next one, once they hit puberty, is what's happening to me now. Both of those books talk about the male and female side. So the kids learn that was an easy way to introduce talking to our daughter. Here's what happens with you, but here's what happens with boys too. And this is what's going to happen with your brother as he's going to start having erections and not know where they're coming from. And that creates a sensitivity to the other gender to understand a little bit about what they're going through. And our son understands there's something called menstruation, and that's terrible. I'm glad I'm not a girl, he said. And our daughter said the same thing about, I'm glad I'm not a boy. They got to walk around with those things. But when you understand the other side a little more,
right,
it creates, room for more intimacy, room for compassion, room for all kinds of things.
And then the last principle is just, this is a continuous effort by us as parents to keep the door open on this subject, to be a trusted source, to be able to say with a teachable moment, because that's one of the things we'll talk about a little more in detail in the extended content, but it's worth adding it here too as we end this segment, is take advantage of teachable moments with our kids all the time. And that's a way to show the door's open, because this is an important aspect of our lives, even as adults. And so being able to at least confirm and tell them, hey, the door's always open. And if I don't know an answer, we'll figure it out. I won't freak out. We'll figure it out together. We'll find answers. We'll learn, whatever. And it's kind of showing this process of, I don't have it all figured out. That's okay for parents to model that. I'm further down the road, but I'm still learning about intimacy and some of the power of us and who we are. And so there's a humility that comes, but also a presence that comes from this. It really does allow for more questions. And if I am asked questions, be very gracious and thankful for that. Of like, hey, I appreciate so much you brought that to me, because that sets the stage for a welcoming environment in the future too.
And keep in mind that it's not just this topic that you have to keep a welcoming environment. If the kids are scared to talk to you about other things, they're not going to want to talk to you about this thing.
Right.
And so you got to create an environment of openness with the kids anyway.
And so let's end it with this. So here's some common parent fears that will happen that you could hear if people could be thinking of as they're listening to this. But what if I say it wrong? Right? What if I don't know the answer?
That's okay.
It's okay. Keep it short, honest, and even be honest about the fact of, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but here's what I think, and then let's find the answers.
Yeah, I've done that. I've been in the middle of a conversation with one of the kids, and I really don't know that one. Let's go look that up and find out. And so we look it up together.
The other one is, well, but they're too young. And again, that's where we keep it age appropriate and we keep it scaled. And we'll talk about some of the frameworks of how to do that and when on as far as the details. But we set the tone.
I think that if you think your kids are too young to talk about this with, you are out of touch with society.
Right.
Because their friends are talking about it. It's unbelievable how young some of these kids are when they're being introduced to things.
Yep.
So fill their sponge up with the goodness that is from you, with the knowledge that is from you, because they are hearing things at school at very young ages. And even in preschool.
Well, even in Disney shows, more and more, there is some sexualization of things. There is aspects of this topic weaving through.
Yeah.
And if they play video games, the avatars today on some of the video games are
even when we were
absolutely, but it's still they're
very sexualized.
They're exposed to it, like we started the show.
Yeah. So I mean, you start right off the bat when they start learning English, they start learning their body parts.
Yeah. And then the other,
or whatever language you speak.
Two last points then. One is, but I haven't done anything yet. Okay, fine. Start now.
And that's okay.
It's too late. Well, no, it's not.
It's not
Start
too
now,
late.
right? Even if your kids are in their teens, upper teens, it's okay. Start now. Start a conversation on just, hey, coming across this and I realized we haven't ever really talked about this. There you go.
And sometimes it's awkward with them, especially when they're older. It's less awkward when they're younger than when they're older. And that's when you get in, some of the things we talk about on how we talk with our spouse. It's the same tip when you're talking with your kid, right? Maybe you're in a car ride together, so you're both facing forward. And that's where I can get one of our kids. That's the best place for me to talk to him is in the car.
Yep.
And it's just asking a simple question. Hey, what's the girl situation at school? Or how's your girlfriend? If they already have a girlfriend, or how's the relationship going?
You just gave away who the trouble is.
Yes, that's my son. Now I just got distracted.
That's
and
okay.
I forgot
We need to end it up anyway. Then the last point that can oftentimes be a concern that parents will have is this. Yeah, but if I talk about it, I'm encouraging it. And evidence actually shows that's the opposite. That if I equip them and I talk about this, it actually shows a better outcome on how they handle themselves in situations where they really need to be more settled and more congruent with how do they want to act and how do they want to be treated. And so there's truth to the fact that by empowering kids, it really does impact how they handle themselves going forward. And again, like we started with this is about regular, ongoing small talks.
Yeah, you don't have to bring it up all the time.
Nope.
Because then they will get uncomfortable.
It's usually best to not.
Seriously,
because then that's more about you than it is them
exactly.
at that point. So, but that's kind of just some principles to go by. And then on the extended content here in just a second, we'll talk about, okay, what are the age appropriate? How does this break it down into the segments as they age? What do I do when? So if you're not a member, come join.